Shalom Aleichem, a good Moed, Moedim L'Simcha, Hagim, Uzmanim L'Sason. I hope everyone had a wonderful Yom Tov, Chag. And we are continuing our Limud in Mishnah Yomi. We're in chapter 1 of Moed Katan, all about Chol Moed. And today is Chol Moed, Baruch Hashem, Chol Moed Sukkos. And I'm sitting in a sukkah on Chol Moed, beautiful thing. We're in chapter 1 at Mishnah Daled, Mishnah 4. Tzadin et ha'ishut, ve'et ha'achbarim. You may trap the moles, the burrowing creatures, and the mice. Mistei ilon, from a field of trees, like an orchard. Mistei halavan, a white field, meaning it's grain. It's funny because in America we have a song about amber waves of grain, and here they say it's lava. I mean, it's white. It's kind of off-white. It's grain, fine. So either field, shalo kedarko, but not in the normal way. But moed ubeshvit, during Chol Moed, or the sabbatical year, the 7th year in the cycle. The Bartanura here explains that lo kedarko means we do it in an unusual way. Normally we would be digging holes. It's a lot of tircha. So they change it up a little bit. So it's not such a tircha. It's less exertion, less digging. Chachamim omrim, but the other sages say, mistea ilon kedarko. From a field of trees, an orchard, you can even trap them in the normal way, even though there is digging involved, there's tircha involved, because it's a very big danger to have moles and burrowing creatures tunneling under your tree roots. Mistea lovan, shalo kedarka. And from a grain field, you can do it in an unusual way with a shinui, so it's less of a tircha, less exertion during Chol Moed. Umkarin et hapirza b'moed, we can close up a gap during Chol Moed. If there was a fence, for instance, there's a breach in the fence, you could fill it up with some stones so that it's closed off. B'shvit bone kedarko. On Shvit, you could rebuild it in the normal way around your field, around your garden to keep out the pests, even though you're mamish rebuilding it in a normal way, because building a fence is not one of the direct forbidden agricultural labors on the 7th year. It's not like plowing or planting. Now, Mishnah Hay is very interesting because it gets into a concept we just mentioned on Yom Tov, on Chag. We said Zman Simchatenu, Zman Simchasenu, the time of our Simcha. That the Yom Tov of Sukkot especially is a time of Simcha. But every Yom Tov, every holiday season, we have a mitzvah called V'samachta b'chagecha. Literally meaning you shall be joyous, you shall be besimcha, enjoy during your holiday. The Gra said this is an extremely difficult mitzvah, to be happy for an entire week at a time, not such a simple thing. But since Hashem said it in the Torah, to be happy in the holiday, it is a possible thing to do. It is a requirement for us to strive to be happy during the holiday. So Mishnah Hay discusses some inyanim that might be contraindicated if you're trying to be b'samachta v'chagecha. Rebbe Meir Omer, rowing et negoim batchila. You can look at these. So negoim is some sort of skin ailment which might be a tsarat, might be tsaras, which is often mistranslated as leprosy. It's something else. It's a spiritual ailment, basically a physical manifestation of a spiritual problem. So Meir says a Kohen could examine somebody's spots to be mekel, lahakel, to be lenient on him, avol lo lahachmir, but not to be machmir. Now, in a couple years, we're going to learn in much more detail in the Mishnayot of Negaim, about sarat, about the skin blemishes that qualify as a mitzora. But the basic idea we should know today is that certain kinds of blemishes or colorations or hairs within colorations could require somebody to observe a week of quarantine or a week of being outside the city, outside the camp entirely, in isolation, basically. And that would really have a negative impact on his Simchas Yom Tov, on his V'samachta b'chagecha, because he'd be in isolation and quarantine. He would have a very, very big problem. So Rabbi Meir says the Kohen should only look at it if he's going to be mekel and say, no, it's fine. But if he does see that it's a problem, he shouldn't say anything. But the other sages, they disagree. They say, lo lahako v'lo lahachmir. They say the Kohen should not examine somebody's spots to see if they're tzarats, not to be mekel, not to be lenient, and not to be machmir, because they say, if the Kohen sees something and it is problematic, it is tzarats, he's really required to say so. He can't keep his mouth shut if there's really a halachic problem here right in front of him. And therefore, it's really better for him not to look at the tzarats at all on Yom Tov. Okay, you have the guy wear long sleeves and long pants, and he'll be okay. And then after Yom Tov, we're going to come and take a look at it. Now, this might sound like an incredible halachic loophole, a loophole in Jewish law, but because the Torah actually says, V'ra HaKohen, the Kohen has to come and look at it and declare this skin ailment to be tahor or tameh. So really the halacha depends on the Kohen. This man is not tameh as a mitzorah. He doesn't have tzarat until the Kohen looks at it, examines it, and makes a halachic declaration that it's actually tameh. So as long as the Kohen's not looking at it, there's no halachic issue here that's problematic. So you could wait till after Yom Tov to look at it and enjoy the Yom Tov with your family. The Odom Rabbi Meir added, Milokit Adam Atzmut Aviv Ve'imo. A person may gather up the bones of his father or mother, Mipnei Shesimcha Hilo, that's actually happy for him. Now what happened here was his father or mother was temporarily buried in another place. Maybe they passed away out of town on a trip, and they were buried temporarily somewhere else. And now the child wants to move the remains of his parents to the family crypt. He has a family area in the cemetery or some sort of cave or crypt where all of his ancestors are. So even though it's a sad thing to have to move the remains of one's father, they're reminded of the mourning, and there is an element of sadness, but overall it's a benefit to move the remains to the final resting place with the entire family. Rabbi Yossi disagrees. He says, Evil hulo. It's actually a time of avelus whenever somebody's dealing with human remains, dealing with his, it's his own parents and the feelings, the emotions. It's going to disrupt his simcha. So he should not do such a thing during Chol Moed. He should wait until after the holiday's over. The Mishnah concludes on a related note, Lo ya'orer Adam al meito. A person should not, round up people to mourn and cry over a deceased relative. And shouldn't hold eulogies for such a person. Kodem l'regel, before the holiday season, shloshim yom, even 30 days before. Now the reason for this is having a lot of mourning and crying and wailing going on, even for 30 days later. Someone's going to be thinking about the eulogies, thinking about the crying, and they might come to be upset even on the holiday, even during Yom Tov and during Moed itself. So they shouldn't do it even 30 days in advance. They used to professional they had professional eulogizers who would, give speeches that try to make people cry, make people very upset at funerals. And so to hire someone also, they're impacting the money they would have spent on the wine and the meats and the expenses of Yom Tov. So it also cuts into the simcha. We know our sages say, Ein simcha ela basar b'yayin, that to make a real simcha, it's not just an emotional, spiritual feeling. It also helps to have good food. The example they give is meat and wine, but whatever food is a good food that people enjoy on a holiday that brings them to a state of simcha. It's important to have a physical simcha and also an emotional, intellectual, spiritual simcha as well. And Baruch Hashem, one of the intellectual pleasures we have is learning the Mishnahot every day together. I would encourage, God willing, if you all have time, even though we're learning Moed Katan right now, but to go back, it was only a little while ago, look through Mishnahot Sukkah during the holiday of Sukkot is a special segula. It's a very nice thing to do, to examine the Mishnayot of a holiday on that holiday, Bezrat Hashem. Everyone should have a great Moed, a good Moed, Zai Gesund, be well.